Hello and welcome back to our top tips for SMEs series with me, Philip King and Bluechain. I'm excited to introduce James Blackman, who is an accomplished business owner with first-hand experience of the stresses SME owners and operators can face. James, please tell us about you and take us through your top 3 tips.
Thanks, Phil. I'm James Blackman. I own 2 businesses, Cocoon FX Media and Cocoon FMS. One's a digital marketing agency and another is a logistics software provider. The 3 top tips I can share with you today are as follows. Automating invoice chasing. Believe it or not, this is a very stressful process. Many business owners forget to chase invoices, which then leads to not knowing when you're going to get paid. So one of the top tips I can give for you is to put a process in place to automate milestones being sent out automatically via email on certain milestones. That will reduce a big amount of stress and reduce your anxiety. The second bit is cash flow monitoring. Often as a small business owner, as I alluded before, you're in the day-to-day business. You don't know when stuff is going to happen, and using tools to help you automate your cash flow monitoring helps you understand what's due in the next 7, 20, 30, 90 days. And that helps you plan better. It also stops that worrying ahead that, am I going to have enough money to pay my staff? Am I going to have enough money to pay my suppliers? So having this cash flow monitored and automated will save, again, a lot of time, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of sleepless nights will go away. And the third point is having a structured process to follow up on those final automated emails. Believe it or not, people may get bored of seeing your emails or choose to ignore them. So you still have to have a solid process on chasing those invoices up. Otherwise, you simply don't get paid. Your stress levels go through the roof. The anxiety kicks in and you start losing sleep and getting unwell. And it's putting these in, and things like making sure that you have a strong terms and conditions written properly, not copied and pasted from somewhere. Make sure that you follow the process to a T and be ruthless with it. Don't be afraid to have those awkward conversations as well with clients. Have a pre-prepared letter, pre-prepared email, and don't be afraid to send those out, because chances are you will get paid. You will have a bit of a stressful time with the clients. But at the end of the day, if you're providing a valuable service, they'll keep coming back. It's just about being strong and determined to get what you're owed.
Thanks very much, James. Some great practical advice there. Now we're going to spend some time delving a bit further into them, and I hope you won't mind that I'm going to ask you a number of questions that have come into my mind on the back of what you've been talking about and the advice you've been giving. We're also joined now by Tim Annis, who is Chief Executive of Bluechain. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Philip. Great to be here.
So, James, you talked about automating the invoice chasing process as a means of reducing stress and anxiety. Does automating it mean you get paid, or does it just mean you've got a system and still hope you're going to get paid?
The right answer to say is I will get paid, but in reality, it's the hope. There's never a surefire solution that if someone's going to pay, they're going to pay. If someone's not going to pay, they're always going to kick the can down the road. But having the automation just gives you that extra hour, 30 minutes, 15 minutes to do something else while this is doing that process. Often not, as a small business owner, you're out meeting clients, you've got to do the day-to-day admin, you've got to then deal with any problems. And then often or not, if you don't have that automation in place, you forget to do that. And then that's when the stress really does build up. It's then thinking, oh God, I've got to do that. It's like 9 o'clock at night. I don't want to be sending out emails, angry emails, or trying to get hold of someone first thing in the morning to get paid. So it's really critical to have that in there. And then, yeah, the hope is that you will get paid, but it does help. It does help massively.
So I talk to a lot of small businesses, and most of them have got a passion for what they do, and the passion isn't raising invoices or chasing invoices. It's plumbing or hairdressing or web designing or whatever it is they've set out to do in their own business. You say automate the process, and I can imagine someone saying, "Well, it's fine for him to say that, but how do I do that? What do I do? What does it mean? I've got enough to do without trying to create some fancy system." So what's your experience been? How did you put an automated process in place?
So originally we were with quite a clunky accounting system, and doing a bit of research, we found some software solutions out there which can help us with this. You could some systems are quite antiquated in how to do it, but the ones we use is a well-known one, and they have a very, very simple process on how to set it up. It literally is invoice automation, and then you just tell it when you want the invoices to be sent out. So we do 7/14, 7 days before invoice due date, just before the due date, and then 7 days after, and then 14 days after that, if it gets that. And that email, you can tailor each one of those emails as well. And that final email is quite stern. So it's that sort of process, but it literally is a 5-minute job. So spending 5-10 minutes on the phone call on every invoice, where you spend at the start, switch that on, off it goes. And if you've got a customer who does pay regularly and doesn't want that automation, you can just switch it off and they don't get it. So it's a very, very good system. Each account system has a slightly different way of doing it, but the one we use is spot on and it works a dream. You occasionally get...
Is it expensive?
No, not at all. And 30 quid a month for nearly the full package. There's some little bolt-ons we don't have, but for £30, and that covers us for thousands of invoices, so it's not a problem at all. Cheap as well. So for 30 quid, if it means I can get an extra 2 hours sleep a night, great. Or even an extra 2 or 3 hours a day, even better. Sure. So yeah.
Tim, do you want to add anything or ask any questions of James at this point?
Well, I think I just echo what you're saying here. I mean, there's lots of technology that does automation in various areas, and I think nobody's ever dealing with just one invoice. You're always dealing with lots of them, and having to chase each one individually, manually. You can imagine how that builds up in the back of your mind. If I chase this one, did I forget to do that one? Is my customer going to pay me? Is the message that you're trying to solve, isn't it? When am I going to get paid? And are they going to pay me on time? And how can I help with that? And that's very much our ethos at Bluechain. We've sort of seen a lot of this work, and we would like to think we take it a little step further in that we actually connect you with your customers and give you that real-time insight of where's my invoice, what has my customer done with it? So you can see whether they've opened it, whether they've paid it, whether they've scheduled it for the due date, so you can feel comfort that it is going to get paid and you don't need to chase, right? So, that's a big part of what we believe in, that all of this stuff, this making and taking payments shouldn't be as hard as it is. It's very much like throwing something over a wall. Until something comes back, you've got no idea what's going to happen. And our job, as we see it, is to take that wall away and give you that transparency. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think we're also taking a little step further than that, which is exciting. Brilliant.
Thanks, Tim. James, your second tip was to monitor cash flow carefully. And I've talked to a lot of small businesses who think that the bank balance is enough to monitor cash flow. If they've got £5,000 in the bank, they're comfortable. And then they realize they've got to pay out £6,000 tomorrow and they're less comfortable than they thought they were. Managing cash flow is, again, a foreign language to many small business owners who just set up in their own right to do something. What tools do you use to do that? Is it the same tool that you use for the invoicing, or is it something different?
Yes. And what I'll do, just take it back a step from why I measure the cash flow. Previous using this account system, I've had all kinds of problems where you do look at the bank account and you think, oh, I've got a few £1,000 in there. That's great. But then you forget, okay, I need to pay for that. That then goes down to £800. Then suddenly an invoice will just parachute in, and then it'll be, oh, I need to pay that. And then suddenly you're in negative cash flow. Now, for me, that caused massive amounts of stress, particularly when you're owed tens of thousands of pounds. This piece of software on average owed a quarter's worth of revenue. And often or not, that will be around when you need to pay HMRC, staff, corporation tax, stuff like that. And I was very, very ill at one point, projectile vomit, all kinds of stuff, because I didn't have enough money in the bank to pay my staff, and I wanted them to be paid. So I thought to myself, I never want to have that experience again. What can I do to do that? The initial tool I had gave a little bit of insights, which then made us swap to this other tool. And it's part of their Analytics Plus, where they give you 2 business snapshots. One is your cash flow, and it's based on historic data, all your invoicing going through there, what you got reoccurring, plus also what's in your bank account. And then from that, it will predict roughly what you will have in 7 days, 30 days, 90 days, etc. And it's within 10 or 15 pound in accuracy. And you could look at the bank account and go, oh, crikey, I've got nothing there, 200 quid. But if you looked at the cash flow in 30 days, oh, okay, I've got 11K. In 90 days, I've got 35K. And that's taking out all your staff wages. It knows when HMRC is looking to get paid, because it's connected through Make Tax Digital. So all of this then, every Monday, just log on, look at it, double check it. Okay, I've got that much to spend. Okay, that's good. I can pay those invoices quicker. I can then do this, and I may be able to buy something extra for the company to do this. So it's very, very powerful and a really simple tool to use as well. But without it, again, I'll probably be in hospital most of the time, because the stress levels are through the roof. So yeah,
and I guess it links through open banking to your bank account, so it sucks in that information, and it's all there. You haven't got to do anything manual to keep it up to date. It just takes the feeds from where you do other things.
The only thing you have to do is, if you make a ad hoc purchase, like something which you would only do once, it may count that into your figures moving forward. But you can simply go in and just say, no, remove that. So like, if for some reason HMRC, what's owed to HMRC gets put in twice at different dates, you can go in and go, I'll take that one out. So you can plan. It's good, very, very powerful, and visual as well.
Sure. Okay. And clearly that means you can focus on doing what you want to do rather than worrying about what's happening.
You can actually plan ahead.
Yeah, sure.
So, which you can't do without it.
Sure. Tim, anything to add to that?
I think that last piece is the bit that I felt as a small business, owner, as it were. Plan ahead. You can't plan ahead if you don't know your cash flow. You can't confidently, anyway. You can make dreams, hopes and dreams, but you can't go, right, I'm going to do. And that is the critical piece, because how can you really grow a business if you can't do forward planning? So that, I agree. There's some great tools out there that let you get that visibility. And one of the things that I found is the more we can use those tools, the better, the less stressed I am. The less impact that has on either my business or my life, and the more time I get back into actually have a life and not just a business, which is pretty critical. It's a big part again of Bluechain, is how can we help small businesses with some of that stuff? How can we help them to get time back to do the things that matter? And that could be planning ahead, growing a business. It could be going out for dinner, seeing your family, right? There's lots of different things, and all of that is positive to your mental health, isn't it?
For sure, absolutely. James, your final tip was having a structured process to follow up after the final automated email. You've got an automated system that does all of this, beforehand, 7 days after, another 14 days after, and so on. But what you're saying is you need a process that follows on from that.
Yes.
Before we get to that, you and I have spoken on webinars historically when I was small business commissioner and so on. And your story has always motivated me, and I frequently use it when I'm talking to other people. I don't want the long version, but it's just very short version. You talked about projectile vomiting, but I have been impressed by what you've done. And just share us a sort of 30-second version of what you went through and how you countered it.
Yeah. I mean, the sickness I had was where we're constantly being paid late. So up to a quarter's worth of business, that's like £20,000 plus. That's 3 people's salary, 4 people's salary. And we were averaging that our payment terms being paid was 55 days. And I wanted to get that down to 30 because in theory, credit's a luxury. You shouldn't have to give out credit. So we put the automation in place. But what we also did was make sure that we would only work with people who would pay within our terms. And we've done it with large or global car manufacturers. They want our expertise. They have to abide by our payment terms, not their payment terms. Because simply, if I waited 90 days to get paid, that's not going to work for me. That will give me projectile vomit, grey hair, and all of the stuff. And it's about making sure that we pick and choose our battles with it. And it's, if someone's going to pay in 60 days, nah, we're not interested. You've got to work to what we want to work with. And our expertise is in what we do. And you should pay us accordingly. And that's worked. We get very few pay over 30 days. I think our average is 33. And by reducing it from 55 down to 33 days, meant that we could employ 2 staff at a reasonable salary and able to keep those on. And that's remained. In fact, payment terms have got slightly better now. We're down to 28 days. It's creeping up because of Brexit and other things, but that's the key thing. Don't accept any contract because of the name. It's look at what you can control, because they will take the Michael. They will push it as far as they can. It's what you're owed.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because I talk to a lot of small businesses who believe they're powerless to kick back when a large company says what they want to demand. And I always say to people, and you've just articulated it really well here, that when someone wants you to do something for them, you have a position of power. They want to buy your service or your product, and you need to exploit that power at that point and make sure that you get the terms that work for both of you. Agreed. Negotiate by all means, but don't just roll over and accept what is being thrown at you. You talked about having a plan and a structure and so on. What's your experience of using third parties where you need to escalate the collection of a debt?
So generally very good. I mean, we've obviously worked with the Small Business Commissioner's Office, which is in essence the best third party to have because it is free. And all it takes is a phone call or a mention and you do get paid. We had a scenario where I vented at your predecessor that we were owed a large amount of money because someone left the business. That got made public, not naming the company. We got paid the next day, and then the next few invoices coming forward got paid on the day the invoice was issued. So having the Small Business Commissioner in your back pocket, knowing that it's a resource, is ideal. It's also getting friendly with some solicitors. Get some solicitors, one, to do your terms and conditions, because that's critical.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it costs you £2,000 to get your T's and C's done, because those are the things which are going to hold up in court. They're the things which you can go and batter your suppliers with and make it very, very clear in your terms and conditions, your payment terms. If you want to be paid in 14 days, make sure your terms and conditions have 14 days in it. And a lot of businesses copy and paste and find out that they put 90 days in there, and you instantly shoot yourself in the foot.
Sure.
So it's making sure your terms and conditions are perfect. It's then working with those solicitors to say, okay, if an invoice isn't got paid, how much does it cost to have a letter drawn up and sent from you guys? And then Small Business Commissioner. And the way my process works is send them an email saying you're going to talk to the Small Business Commissioner. Then talk to the small business commissioner, and then get the solicitor ready on the back burner, just ready to go.
Yeah.
And that works.
In simple terms, be proactive and don't sit back and never bury your head in the sand. Before we finish, Tim, anything you want to add?
No, I think, that last one's a really good one to call out for small businesses. And I think before we get to one of the strongest parts of it, is the simple thing is plan ahead, be prepared. Plan ahead by having good T's and C's, be prepared by having a process to follow, which you said as part of your tip. You'll be much better off for it and you'll feel much more comfortable for it. And that cuts across so many parts of running a business, doesn't it? But particularly this one, which is so challenging. But I think, if small businesses aren't aware of the Small Business Commissioner's office and what it can do for you and the cost of that, which is nothing, that is a tremendously powerful resource that you should be aware of and you should take advantage of. And I think the other piece to add to that is everybody we work with, it might be business, but we're all people. And people do get that if you don't pay me, I can't pay people. They can't feed their families. That is a fact. And I don't think we should ever be afraid of calling that out, because it's just literal fact. And making sure people are clear of it. But before we get to that point, let's have a plan. Let's be prepared. Let's leverage those resources. And I think that's the most important message to take away for me on this.
Thanks, Tim. Great note to end on. All that remains is for me to thank James for his time and for his top tips. To you, Tim, for your additional comments. And please look out for the next video in the series coming soon.